On the morning of September 12th, 1897, more than 10,000 tribal warriors marched through the rocky hills of the northwest frontier, convinced they would wipe out a small communication post before noon. They were Afridis and Orakzais, men of the mountains, armed with Martini-Henry rifles and curved sabers, their standards fluttering under the relentless Himalayan sun. To them, Saragarhi was merely a stone in the path, a minor obstacle before crushing the British forts beyond the horizon. But what awaited them was not surrender, not fear, not flight. It was 21 men, 21 Sikhs of the 36th Regiment, their turbans tied firmly, long beards touching their chests, and in their eyes that gleam that exists only in those who have already accepted death as a companion. And when the first wave of attackers surged over the crest of the hill, the signaling post erupted in fire. Rifles discharged in precise volleys, bodies tumbled down the slopes, screams tore through the hot air, wave after wave of warriors charged against the stone walls, and wave after wave fell back, leaving behind mountains of dead. The heliograph blinked ceaselessly, sending desperate messages across the valley, ammunition running low, enemy in overwhelming numbers. We will resist to the end. When the sun began to descend, the main gate was breached. Flames consumed the walls, and still, amid the smoke and chaos, one last soldier climbed the signaling tower, raised his rifle and shouted the Sikh battle cry before disappearing into the whirlwind of blades. When silence finally fell over Saragarhi, 600 enemy bodies lay scattered around the ruins. 21 men had held back 10,000 for nearly 8 hours. And the echo of that day would cross continents, be read in the parliaments of Europe, and become one of the greatest last stands in military history. This is the story of how 21 soldiers defied an army and became immortal. In the late 19th century, the northwest frontier of British India was a land of merciless mountains, treacherous valleys, and tribes that had never bowed to any empire. The Afridis and Orakzais, Pashtun peoples from the mountainous regions that today form part of Pakistan, lived according to ancestral codes of honor and war. To them, the British presence was an affront, an invasion of lands that had belonged to their ancestors since time immemorial. The British Empire, for its part, viewed that region as essential to the security of India. The Khyber Pass, just a few kilometers away, was the gateway to the subcontinent, and any power that controlled it could threaten the most precious jewels of the crown. Russia was expanding across Central Asia, and the British feared that one day the Tsar's Cossacks would descend through the same mountains that Alexander the Great had crossed millennia before. To protect this volatile frontier, the British had built a series of forts along the Samana range. Two of these forts, Lockhart and Gulistan, were particularly important, guarding strategic routes and serving as bases for the troops patrolling the region. But there was a problem. The mountains blocked the line of sight between the two forts. They could not communicate directly. The solution was Saragarhi. Built on a rocky ridge between the two forts, Saragarhi was a modest outpost. A small stone fortress with loopholed walls for firing, an inner courtyard, and a signaling tower equipped with a heliograph, a device that used mirrors to reflect sunlight and transmit messages in Morse code. During the day, light signals blinked between the mountains, keeping the forts connected. Saragarhi was the eyes and voice of British defense in that region. In August of 1897, 5 companies of the 36th Sikh Regiment, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel John Horton, were sent to garrison the posts along the Samana range. This regiment had been created just 10 years earlier, in 1887, recruited exclusively from Jat Sikhs of the Punjab region. They were men of a warrior faith, raised in the tradition of the Khalsa, the Brotherhood of the Pure, who since the times of Guru Gobind Singh had sworn never to retreat before the enemy. The summer of that year brought dark rumors. The tribes were stirring. Mullahs preached jihad against the British. messengers crossed the valleys, carrying summons to war. In June, violence erupted in the Swat Valley. In July, 12,000 warriors besieged the forts of Malakand and Chakdara. The northwest frontier was ablaze. Between August 27th and September 11th, the Afridis and Orakzais launched furious attacks against the British forts in the Samana region. Fort Gulistan was attacked on September 3rd and 9th, but both assaults were repelled by the 36th Sikhs. The tribal warriors realized that as long as Saragarhi existed, the forts could communicate and coordinate their defenses. The key to victory lay in that small post on the mountain ridge. On the night of September 11th, a relief column returning from Fort Lockhart passed through Saragarhi and left additional soldiers at the post. When the sun rose the following day, 21 men guarded those stone walls, 3 non-commissioned officers and 18 soldiers, all Sikhs, all ready to die. The man who led them was Havildar Ishar Singh. Born in 1858 in the village of Joran near Jagraon, in the Ludhiana district of Punjab, Ishar Singh came from a family of Sikh farmers. From a young age, he dreamed of being a soldier. At 18, he enlisted in the Punjab Frontier Force, where he learned military discipline and perfected his combat skills. In 1887, when the 36th Sikh Regiment was formed, he was transferred to this new unit. British records describe him as a turbulent character, a man whose independent nature frequently brought him into conflict with his superiors. Major General James Lunt summarized his personality in a phrase that would become famous. Ishar Singh was a nuisance in camp, but magnificent in the field. At 39 years of age, Ishar Singh was a veteran of the mountains. He knew the terrain, knew the enemy, and knew his men. He had married in 1893 to a woman named Jiwani Kaur, but military life kept him far from home. He knew he might never see his wife again. Frontier soldiers lived with that silent certainty every day. Among the 21 men under his command was Gurmukh Singh, the post signalman. At just 19 years old, he was the youngest of the group. His function was to operate the heliograph, sending coded messages to Fort Lockhart. That day, he would become the eyes and voice of Saragarhi, transmitting every moment of the battle as it happened. Thanks to his signals, we know the details of what occurred on that rocky ridge, with a precision rare in military history. The other 19 men came from villages scattered across Punjab. Naik Lal Singh, Lance Naik Chanda Singh, Sepoy Sundar Singh, Ram Singh, Uttar Singh, Bhuta Singh, Jivan Singh, Bhagwan Singh, Bola Singh, Narayan Singh, Gurmukh Singh, a second soldier with the same name as the signalman, Jiwan Singh, Ram Sarup Singh, Hira Singh, Sahib Singh, Daya Singh, Nan Singh, and Narain Singh. Names of ordinary men, sons of farmers and artisans, who that day would write their names in eternity. The morning of September 12, 1897, dawned clear over the mountains. The air was cold at that altitude, and the rising sun painted the rocky ridges in shades of gold and orange. At Saragarhi, the 21 Sikhs began their morning routine. Some prayed, others prepared breakfast, while the sentries watched the horizon. Around 8:30 in the morning, Gurmukh Singh climbed the signaling tower to begin the day's communications. That was when he saw it. Moving across the distant slopes, a dark mass approached. Flags fluttered. The sound of drums echoed through the valleys. The young signalman began counting the tribal standards. Each standard represented approximately 1,000 warriors. He counted 14. His hands trembled for an instant before beginning to operate the heliograph. The mirrors captured the sunlight and sent the message to Fort Lockhart. Enemy approaching the main gate. We need reinforcements. At the fort, Lieutenant Colonel Horton received the message and rushed to the ramparts with his binoculars. What he saw chilled his blood. Between 10,000 and 14,000 Afridi and Orakzai warriors surrounded Saragarhi. cutting off any possibility of communication or movement between the forts. It was a perfect trap. The tribals intended to destroy the signaling post and then attack the isolated forts one by one. Horton sent his response through the heliograph, unable to send immediate help. Hold position. Ishar Singh gathered his men in the inner courtyard. 20 faces looked at him, waiting for guidance. Some were veterans like himself, others were young men who had never seen real combat. All knew what those numbers meant. Against 10,000 enemies, there was no chance of victory, no chance of survival, but there was a choice. Ishar Singh asked each man, one by one, whether he wished to fight or try to escape. The answer was unanimous. No one would run. They would fight to their last breath, not for personal glory, but to give the forts enough time to prepare. Every hour they held the tribals at Saragarhi was another hour for reinforcements to reach Fort Gulistan. Gurmukh Singh sent a single word back to Fort Lockhart. Understood. The Sikhs took their positions. They formed two lines along the walls, one row kneeling and the other standing. Martini-Henry rifles aimed at the slopes. Each man carried 400 rounds of ammunition. It wasn't much, but it would have to be enough. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the drums stopped. A heavy silence fell over the valley, and then came the first attack. The first wave of warriors surged up the slope in a furious charge, shouting the name of Allah, brandishing rifles and swords. Ishar Singh waited until they were 200 meters away. Then he gave the order. The valley exploded in thunder. 21 rifles fired in unison, a wall of lead and fire that swept across the slope. Bodies fell. Those who survived stumbled over the dead and kept advancing. Another volley, more bodies. The closest warriors reached 50 meters from the walls before falling back, leaving dozens of fallen comrades in the dust. The Sikhs reloaded quickly, their hands moving with the precision of years of training. From the top of the tower, Gurmukh Singh continued transmitting, "First charge repelled, enemy regrouping." The tribals did not wait long. A second wave came minutes later, larger than the first. This time, some managed to reach the walls, trying to scale the stones. They were met with bayonets and rifle butts. The hand-to-hand combat was brutal, visceral. Blood stained the ancient stones of Saragarhi. Bhagwan Singh was the first Sikh to fall, struck by a bullet that pierced one of the loopholes. Naik Lal Singh was seriously wounded shortly after. Jiwa Singh and Lal Singh dragged Bhagwan Singh's body to the interior of the post while the others continued firing. 3 hours passed. The Sikhs had repelled 7 massive charges. Each attack left more bodies on the slopes, but also reduced the ammunition of the small detachment. And the numbers were against them. For every warrior they killed, 10 more waited their turn. At noon, Gurmukh Singh sent another message. Casualties, ammunition diminishing, but we remain firm. The tribal leaders tried a new tactic. They sent emissaries offering terms of surrender. They promised that the Sikhs would be spared if they surrendered the fort. Ishar Singh listened to the proposals from atop the ramparts. His response was a volley of gunfire that scattered the negotiators. The following hours were a nightmare of gunpowder and blood. The tribals discovered a weak section in the wall and concentrated their efforts there. Using tools in their bare hands, they began to open a breach. The Sikhs fired continuously, but they could not stop everyone. At 2 in the afternoon, Gurmukh Singh transmitted, "Ammunition very low. Urgently need supplies." Horton tried to send his personal orderly with ammunition, but the man was intercepted and killed before covering 100 meters. There was no way to help Saragarhi. The 21 were completely alone. The tribals changed tactics again. They set fire to the bushes and dry vegetation around the fort. Smoke began to rise, entering through the loopholes, blinding the defenders. The heat of the flames added to the heat of the midday sun. The Sikhs coughed and wept as they continued firing toward the shadows moving through the smoke. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the breach in the wall was finally opened. Warriors began pouring through, shouting victory. Ishar Singh ordered his men to fall back to the second perimeter while he remained to cover the retreat. Alone in the breach, the Havildar raised his bayonet and faced the human tide. We do not know how many he killed before he fell. British records say only that he fought magnificently to the end. Inside the fort, the survivors formed one last circle of defense. They were fewer than 10 now. Their ammunition had run out. They fought with bayonets, knives, rifle butts, stones, anything they could use as a weapon. The combat was primitive, desperate, fierce. One by one, they fell. In the signaling tower, Gurmukh Singh watched the carnage below. His fingers still worked the heliograph, sending one last message. Main gate breached, down to 1. Request permission to dismantle equipment and join the fight. The response came immediately. Permission granted. The young signalman carefully dismantled the heliograph, stored it in his leather bag, fixed the bayonet to his rifle, and descended from the tower. The soldiers at Fort Lockhart saw him disappear into the mass of combatants, his voice echoing across the valley. Jo Bol, So Nihal, Sat Shri Akal. Blessed is he who proclaims the truth. Truth is eternal. Gurmukh Singh, the 19-year-old boy, killed 20 warriors before succumbing. The tribals had to set fire to the tower itself to finally silence him. Even as the flames consumed him, they say he continued shouting the Sikh battle cry. Silence fell over Saragarhi at 5 in the afternoon. The battle had lasted nearly 8 hours. When the smoke cleared, the tribal warriors contemplated what they had conquered, a small fort in ruins, 21 bodies of men who had refused to surrender. And around them, scattered across the slopes and inside the post, 600 of their own companions lay dead. The tribal leaders realized too late what those hours had cost. Their intention was to destroy Saragarhi quickly and then attack Fort Gulistan before reinforcements could arrive. But the 21 Sikhs had bought precious time with their lives. On the night of September 13th to 14th, while the tribals were still reorganizing, a British relief column arrived at Fort Gulistan. When the Afridis and Orakzais finally attacked the fort, they found a garrison prepared and well armed. The attack failed. 2 days later, on September 14th, British and Indian troops retook Saragarhi. What they found marked them forever. The bodies of the 21 Sikhs lay where they had fallen, some still holding their weapons. Round the post, piles of tribal corpses testified to the ferocity of the resistance. The soldiers who retook the post counted approximately 600 enemy bodies, though the tribals themselves later admitted to about 180 dead and many more wounded. Using the burnt bricks of Saragarhi, the British built an obelisk in memory of the 21. A tablet was erected listing each name, each life that had been given on that rocky ridge. News of the battle traveled faster than the wind. When it reached London, the British Parliament suspended its sessions. Members of both houses, Lords and Commons, rose to their feet in a rare unanimous ovation, honoring the memory of 21 Indian soldiers who had given their lives defending a post of the Empire. All 21 Sikhs were posthumously awarded the Indian Order of Merit, the highest decoration for bravery that an Indian soldier could receive at that time, equivalent in prestige to the Victoria Cross awarded to British soldiers. It was the first and only time in history that every member of a unit received the highest gallantry medal for a single action. Queen Victoria ordered that the families of the fallen receive lands and lifetime pensions. 2 memorial gurdwaras, Sikh temples, were built in Firozpur and Amritsar to honor their memory eternally. The second is located near the Golden Temple, the holiest site in Sikhism, ensuring that pilgrims from around the world would hear the story of Saragarhi. The Battle of Saragarhi became more than a military event. It became a symbol, Historians compared it to the resistance of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, though with a crucial difference. At Saragarhi, there were only 21 against 10,000, an even more impossible ratio. UNESCO included it among the 8 great stories of collective bravery in human history. For the British Empire, the battle served as powerful propaganda, demonstrating the loyalty and valor of Indian troops. For the Sikhs, it became something far deeper, a living embodiment of their guru's teachings, proof that faith and courage can transcend death. Havildar Ishar Singh, the turbulent man who was magnificent in the field, never returned to his wife, Jiwani Kaur. Tragically, she was killed by Ishar Singh's own brother after her husband's death, and the murderer was sent to the Kalapani prison in the Andaman Islands. Ishar Singh left no direct descendants, but his legacy lives on in every soldier who wears the uniform of the Sikh Regiment. Every year, on September 12th, the 4th Battalion of the Sikh Regiment of the Indian Army commemorates Saragarhi Day. It is the regiment's Battle Honours Day, a moment to remember 21 men who chose death over surrender, duty over survival. In Punjab, the government declared the date a state holiday in 2017, 120 years after the battle. In 2021, a 10-foot bronze statue was unveiled in Wolverhampton, England, depicting Havildar Ishar Singh. Funded by the local Sikh community, the statue ensures that even in the land of the former colonial rulers, the memory of those 21 men remains alive. The story of Saragarhi is not just about war. It is about what it means to keep your word. It is about choosing your principles when all is lost. It's about 21 ordinary men, sons of farmers from Punjab, who on a single September day became eternal. The wind still blows through the mountains of the former northwest frontier. The ruins of Saragarhi have long since disappeared under the dust of time. The empires that fought there have also vanished, both British and tribal. But in every Gurdwara in the world, in every barracks of the Sikh Regiment, in every heart that hears this story, those 21 men continue to stand. They remain on the broken ramparts, rifles in hand, eyes fixed on the horizon, waiting, steadfast, immortal. Jo Bole So Nihal, Sat Shri Akal. Blessed is he who proclaims the truth. Truth is eternal, and the truth of Saragarhi is this: that 21 men, armed only with faith and courage, can hold back an army. That the strength of a nation is not measured in numbers, but in the hearts of those willing to give everything for it. That there are battles that can never be won, but that must still be fought. Because sometimes history is not written by the conquerors, it is written by those who refuse to fall. And at Saragarhi, on September 12, 1897, 21 men wrote a page that will never be erased. A page stained with blood, illuminated by faith, and engraved forever in the memory of humanity.